Question. Can you beat Skyrim's main quest using only the weaker spells in the game? That's right. No fireballs, no chain lightning, just the magical equivalent of throwing a wet paper towel at a dragon. To make it even worse, I'm doing this on legendary difficulty. This is going to be painful. So, what happens when you try to face down a Death Lord armed with nothing but the flame spell? Well, you get this. The rules for this disaster are pretty simple. I can only deal damage with novice level spells, I can wear any armor I want, and I'm allowed one follower who I suspect will be doing most of the actual work. Shouts are banned except for when the game literally forces me to use them to progress. This is the Skyrim Novice Spells Only Challenge. I started my journey as a high elf, mostly for the extra 50 magicka, which I figured would let me cast my pathetic spells for a few extra seconds before I had to run and hide. I named him Mr. Sparkles, a name that strikes fear into absolutely no one. The escape from Helgen was our first taste of just how grim this was going to be. While Ralof single-handedly dismantled the entire Imperial Legion, I was in the back, dutifully spraying a heavily armed officer with the flame spell. It was like trying to melt a glacier with a birthday candle. The officer would occasionally turn, look at me with what I can only describe as pity, and then go back to fighting the real threat. I learned my role in this world pretty quick. Moral support, and looting bodies. Definitely looting bodies, lots of those. My main strategy became hiding behind Ralof and occasionally casting Fury, which just made enemies angry enough to ignore me and attack him instead. It wasn't heroic, but hey, it was effective. After what felt like an eternity, we finally escaped. I immediately grabbed the Mage Stone for that sweet XP boost and stumbled into the wide world of Skyrim, a man armed with the magical prowess of a slightly damp sponge. The road to Whiterun went surprisingly well. I thought it was going to be a nightmare straight out of hell, but luckily for me, I only came across one wolf, which I managed to flame and spark until he met his demise. After talking to the Jarl in Whiterun, I was tasked with travelling to Bleak Barrow. This ancient tomb is the real first dungeon for any Dragonborn, a simple rite of passage. For Mrs. Sparkles, it was a waking nightmare. The Draga here might as well have been made of stone. My novice spells barely scratched them. I spent most of my time chugging the 2 health potions I owned and getting intimately familiar with the dungeon's floor textures after being repeatedly knocked down. The jump scares were real. A Draga waking up was enough to send me sprinting back to the entrance. I'm not proud of this, but I let the final Draga Deathlord beat on Faendal until he was on his last bit of health before I blasted the daylights out of him. After finally delivering the Dragonstone to Farengar, something magical happened. I became Thane of Whiterun, and the Jarl granted me the single greatest weapon in any novice mage's arsenal, Lydia. This was the turning point. Lydia, my housecarl, my tank, my entire damage output. With her standing in front of me, I could finally stand a chance. She would charge into battle, a one-woman army, while I stood safely in the back, contributing by occasionally setting our enemies on fire for negligible damage. She was the hero Skyrim deserved, and I was just a squishy mage hiding behind her. Our first dragon encounter at the Western Watchtower was long. My first attempt I was eaten while near enough full health. This was the moment I realised I need to just hide. In a normal playthrough, this is a pretty epic battle. For us, it was a lesson in extreme patience. My strategy was simple. I hid inside the watchtower while Lydia and the guards bravely took the brunt of the dragon's attacks. Every so often, I'd peek my head out, unleash a few flames that probably felt like a hairdryer to the dragon, then immediately duck back into cover as my magicka bar vanished. In this case, it was my health bar. The guards would occasionally yell things like, "Hit him with all you've got," and "I'll see you burn." I think to myself, I am! This is all I've got! The dragon would land, get swarmed by people with actual weapons, and I'd run out, contribute my 3 points of damage, and then scurry back inside like a scared child. After about 10 minutes of this glorified game of peekaboo, the mighty dragon, Myrmilnir, finally fell. I absorbed its soul, feeling like a complete and total fraud. The guards hailed me as a hero. Little did they know their victory was secured by power of wet tissue paper and a very brave follower. The main quest was moving forward, but I was hitting a wall, my damage abysmal, and I was burning through magicka faster than I could drink potions. It was time for a detour. My only hope was to find more versatile novice spells, and the best place for that was the College of Winterhold. Just one problem. To get in, Feralda asks you to cast a specific spell. Most of the time, it's an apprentice level spell like Firebolt or Mage Light. I couldn't learn those, my own rules forbade it. With no new tools at my disposal, and the feeling of being mocked by the college, I started the Thalmor Embassy quest. A mission that calls for stealth and careful planning. My build was the opposite of stealthy. I was a walking light show with pathetic sparks. My plan? Attempt to sneak. To be honest with you, this did not work at all, and ended up going sparks and flames ablazing. I failed many times, until I finally prevailed after giving the Thalmor mage the runaround. This entire run has been a testament to creative problem solving and the fine art of hiding. If you enjoy watching me suffer through Skyrim in the most ridiculous way possible, consider subscribing. It really helps and it motivates me to keep up with even dumber challenges. At this point I had made it to Alduin's wall, which was made harder thanks a lot to Lydia, who proceeded to sabotage my carefully planned movement by standing on any tiles she deemed fit. From this point forward, the challenge became less about combat and more about exploiting the game itself. Skyrim is famous for its jankiness, as most of you know, its weird physics and buggy AI, and I was about to become its most dedicated student. Fighting a dwarven centurion? Not a chance. I'd rather spend 15 minutes learning into a pressure plate trap.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
After defeating the Dwemer by any means necessary, it was time to venture into Blackreach, a cavern so vast and filled with so many powerful enemies that it makes most players tremble. I trembled, but for different reasons. My strategy was pure cowardice. I relied on Lydia to tank absolutely everything. I would find a high ledge or a tight corner she couldn't be knocked from, and just spam my spells from a safe distance, slowly whittling down enemies that were 10 times my level. It was in these moments that I truly felt like a master tactician, a general commanding his one-woman army from the safety of a nearby mushroom. I wasn't playing Skyrim anymore, I was playing Lydia Simulator 2025. Finally, after countless hours of grinding, hiding, and letting Lydia do all the heavy lifting, we reached the end of the line, Sovngarde. The final battle against Alduin, the World Eater. This was it, the ultimate test between Alduin and the world's weakest hairdryer. The strategy here was no different than any other dragon fight, just on a much more epic scale. I used the quest-mandated Dragon Wrench shout to force Alduin to the ground, which is crucial since he's invulnerable in the air. Once he landed, 3 ancient Nord heroes, Gormlaith, Hakon and Feldir, would swarm him, and me? I stood back, found a nice safe rock to hide behind, and unleashed a steady stream of flames and sparks as usual. Why flames and sparks? Because while recording this, I didn't know that Alduin had a 25% weakness to frost. So there I was, in the Nordic afterlife, fighting a god of destruction, by giving him a mild case of sunburn from 20 feet away. The heroes clashed with steel and fury. Alduin breathed fire and shook the very foundations of the world. And I was there, the Dragonborn, hero of prophecy, dutifully holding down the trigger like I was trying to defrost a car window on a chilly morning. Slowly, painstakingly, his health bar began to deplete. It felt less like an epic battle, and more like a tedious administrative task. But eventually, the World Eater fell. I had beaten Skyrim using only the weakest spells in the game. So, can you beat Skyrim with only novice spells? Yes, absolutely. But the real question is, should you? Probably not. This challenge was a painful, hilarious, and often frustrating journey. It turned the epic power fantasy of Skyrim into a desperate, cowardly scramble for survival. I didn't feel like the Dragonborn. I felt like the Dragonborn's intern, the guy who gets the coffee and occasionally provides a light show. This playthrough taught me one thing above all else. The true hero of Skyrim isn't the one who masters every shout and spell, it's the follower who stands by your side, patiently tanking giants, dragons and Draker while you launch pathetic sparks from the background. Here's to you, Lydia, you're the real MVP. Thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments what ridiculous challenge I should try next. Maybe I'll try to beat it with only a wooden ladle, sounds about right.